I'm recording now.
What is up, guys? Ctrl+Z Cast Season 2 charging on. Sorry about last night. California decided it was National No Internet Day for people named Evan Eckerd. So we had to bump it back to tonight, but
Dude, yeah.
it was an earthquake, right?
No, some construction crew. What my ISP told me is some construction crew managed to cut through a fiber line. So
That's
I don't
crazy.
know what they were
By
doing.
construction, and by construction crew, they mean one of their technicians.
They mean somebody probably digging around in the street. Doing who knows what.
Some hobo with a shovel. It's like, I hit something.
So,
Oh, that wasn't supposed to look like that.
so on the note of new date and time. We
Yeah.
have decided, as a consensus group here, that we're going to move the show back to Sunday nights
Sunday.
instead of Monday nights. Just works better for us in general, and we we're thinking about pushing back the time about 30 minutes to 8 p.m. Central Time. And with it being Sundays and us having a little more flexibility, we might every once in a while, maybe once a month or so, have like an early afternoon show for the UK peoples. But we are not decided on that part. But we are decided on Sunday streams with the 8 p.m. Central starting time. So that's good news.
Very good.
A lot of people were
Really?
saying Sundays is much better for them, and I agree. So
Mondays is tough for us too because we're doing. I don't know about you guys, but I'm doing a full day of work and then it's right into the radio and or the show and it's
yeah,
my brain doesn't switch gears that fast anymore.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah,
a weird
that's tough.
weekend. I have a weird weekend. I have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday off, so Monday is still part of my weekend. But
That's
I
not a
definitely
weekend,
know.
that's an awesome weekend.
Yeah. How dare you? Are you even American?
Yes, I take as many days off as possible.
A lot of companies are starting to go with that model and seeing some really good results with that, though.
Yep,
Like,
and
not working Fridays or half Fridays and stuff. And
there's also a big movement in our office to move everyone to working from home.
nice. Why not?
But we'll
Give them
see.
See, that's the thing though, because you got to think the way that America is built now. Because I mean, you got to think like late 1800s and all through the 1900s, work was real work, like physical labor, actual work, where you had to go into a place, with all the manufacturers and all that, and work 9 to 5. Otherwise, nothing gets done. But now, I mean, with everything is tech based, like not everything, of course, but like there's so many companies that are all just technology based where there's no reason to have someone physically there. Like everything can be done remotely. So it's pretty
Well,
interesting to see that kind of taking off.
yeah, it
Yeah.
works really well until someone clips a fiber line.
Yes. Exactly.
You better have that vacation time.
Case in point. Yeah.
But it does work really well, especially
Yeah.
if your whole role is in some way digital art or code or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but even working from home, you have to be. There's really two big factors though. You have to be you have to be super self-motivated because
Yes.
let's face it, if you're working at home and you're surrounded by a refrigerator with junk food and your family's running all around and your daughter's like pulling on your leg and saying play with me, like trust me from experience, like, and Evan, I'm sure you've experienced this. It's actually
Yeah,
really
well,
hard. I mean, you have to have a space. Like you have to have a space that you can shut the door and say, listen, like I'm at work right now. It's to
yeah.
to get
Well,
stuff
it's
done
also
sometimes.
even if those like when my kids are at school and my wife's doing she's out shopping or whatnot and keeping the house running. Um, it's still easy to get distracted. So it's a whole nother, when it's easy to go do something around the house or something and you know, uh, uh, you know, get distracted and not focus on what you're doing. So it does take a whole different mindset and kind of, it's a little harder at times to get used to it.
Oh
But
yeah, there's
Especially on a nice day outside.
yeah, there's
sunny
some
outside.
days. Yeah, there's some days where I need to work from home for whatever reason. Sometimes it's like it's snowed here for 7 days straight or whatever, and
Yeah.
you just have to start working from home. And one of the other challenges that I have found is if you're gonna work remotely, you have to be a really good communicator too. Like,
Yeah.
you're really gonna have to collaborate throughout the day via email, Skype calls, whatever it may be,
Yep.
because you don't have people that you can just go talk to and say, hey, what do you think about this project or whatnot. You have to
Yeah.
be very, very very open communicator to make it happen.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
And
FaceTime is extremely important. So trying to mimic or get as close as you can to having that inner office FaceTime, that's a tough one. That means um, double or triple the amount of just. I've got every instant messenger going most of the day, and emails back and forth, and
You got to organize
Skype
it.
webcam calls, and it's pretty much like I'm there.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah,
but it takes a lot of effort. It's a lot of work. So, um, but yeah, it's awesome that you can that we can do that these days.
yeah.
yep,
Yep.
So
technology is a wonderful thing.
yeah.
Until someone hits it with a shovel.
So,
Yeah.
tonight, as promised, we are going to have a live tutorial hosted by our very own Travis.
Yep.
Hi.
So it's going to be very exciting. And why don't you just talk about that a little bit, Travis,
Wait, what? Talk about what?
about
What
the
I'm doing?
tutorial?
Oh yeah, so tonight, sorry. So I got a little sidetracked.
Focus.
I was reading the chat. So yeah, so we at Creative Grenade, my business, we get asked sometimes daily, what is the process of starting a website design? And one of the biggest questions is what size? Like, what size do I start my Photoshop canvas at, and things of that nature.
Yep.
So I'm going to go through all of that pretty much. I'm going to do a very quick, kind of not so great looking website mock-up within Photoshop, and basically explain to you from start to finish, from not even having a single document open, what you need to be doing to design the website that will be development ready, basically, rather than just a piece of artwork in Photoshop.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. When we
Sweet.
doing that?
Oh, are we doing that
Gonna-
now?
What's
Yeah, we're
the
gonna jump-
agenda?
We're gonna
Alright.
yeah, we're gonna go ahead and jump right into that, and then once we finish that up, we are gonna go over your mascot logo submissions,
Yes.
and if we got some time, we'll squeeze in the top 5.
Sounds good. Okay, let me pop on over to the other scene here so you can see my screen. Yeah. So real quick, I want to point out, let me hide all these bookmarks so you can see more. Oops. That anytime you're visiting a website, you've probably noticed a trend. For example, let's just go to something like, let's go to like eBay. So websites, the way they're built is all of the content is built within something called a container. So as you can see from the left side of the eBay logo to the right side over here, everything falls into this left to right container. And if you scroll down, everything on at least good websites falls into a grid as well. So as you can see, these boxes of content are actually falling into the same grid, and they have the same amount of distance between the two of each other. And if we keep scrolling down, let's see where we can get. So here you see how these are all set up on a grid. And then even down to the footer, these actually also fall into a grid as well. So with that said, a lot of developers like to use frameworks. And one of the more popular ones is something called Bootstrap, which is Twitter's. Twitter uses Bootstrap. So let's go to twitter.com, for example.
Twitter created Bootstrap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And they created Bootstrap. There's a bunch of elements and stuff. So same situation here. You see
Did
if
they created for did they create Bootstrap for Twitter, or was it just something they
I don't
worked on
know.
independently?
It was
I'm not
to be
totally
a
sure.
standard framework for their developers, and then they realized we should just let everybody use this.
Yeah.
They're like, this is awesome. We should probably give it to the community.
Yeah, and one of the Twitter Bootstrap, it says in the browser. One thing to point out that's kind of interesting about all these frameworks that developers use is they were actually originally built for very, very quick prototyping. They were never really meant to to build a fully designed website off of. But they realized with time constraints that after they've started building these quick prototype builders with Bootstrap and Foundation and all these other frameworks, that it was actually really easy to implement a full website using it, and it was easier. So if you're still a little bit confused, really quick, this is actually not the right site. It's getbootstrap.com. What these frameworks are they're kind of, imagine them, they're basically like containers of information to hold all of your website design. So for example, if I come to components, there's icons here, but things like labels, this framework's all here. But the biggest thing to point out is the grid system. So let me scroll up to the top. Getting started. So you see Bootstrap has a few easy ways to get started, but if you scroll down everything, you see how there's breakpoints, and then it goes all the way down to responsive view. So that's what these frameworks do, and they're all based on a grid. Now, if you Google download Bootstrap PSD grid, the first link is we'll link this in the description. It gives you this basically. So it gives you some PSD files. So there's an 1170 pixel PSD, a 970, which is smaller desktops, 750 and 480 are your tablets, and 320 is your phone. You can start with 1170, and you can see this is the grid. So let me take off this column and this here, and I'll hit Control semicolon to bring up the guides. So the way this works is from this left guide to the right, you can see it's 1140 pixels. So that's where your actual content for your website's going to go. So just as an example, let me pull up Twitter again, and I'm going to do a quick full page screenshot with this really cool Google plugin I found. So now I have a JPEG of Twitter. I'll copy it and I'll paste it in, and then I'll arrange it to right here. Now you'll see that the actual website content falls within these grids, and it doesn't go outside of it. So the question of what size do I actually do my PSD file at, it doesn't actually matter what the width or the height of your PSD is. So I'm actually going to use the crop tool and increase the width of this and increase the height a lot. And you'll notice that I'm still keeping the grids centered within this template. And I'm going to increase the background here, make it a lot larger. So as long as, if I zoom in 100% here, as long as your content falls into this grid, you'll be fine in terms of handing it off to a developer to actually develop it. Now you wouldn't want to put like a logo over here outside of the grid, and you wouldn't want the grid to break in terms of, like, if this is our logo, for example, you wouldn't want the logo to fall outside of the grid even a little bit, or any other important content like text, images, and things like that. So for example, I'm going to put this as my logo. Let me just actually I'll show you. We'll do the Creative Grenade site because I have a bunch of PSDs of that, and you can see how the grid works in there. So let me open up.
I do a lot of 970.
Yeah.
With designs just to accommodate for the smaller desktops.
Yeah.
Laptops.
Yeah. Starting at 970 is actually sometimes a better choice. It just really depends on if your main nav is gonna be like extremely robust, you want to start at 970. That way you know that smaller desktops viewing it at a 970 pixel width is gonna still fit all those items. 1170 is okay. It's usually where I start. But as you can see, this is the Creative Grenade website. This is actually an earlier version than what we have live now, but you can still get a very good idea of how this grid system works. So it's the same exact grid system as this. It's the Bootstrap grid. If I hop over, you see how the logo is flush up against this left design, or this left grid guideline, and then all the way to the right, the main menu ends on this right side, and this should actually probably end like right there. As long as that stuff falls in there, you should be good. However, as you can see with this hero image, you can design outside of that grid, but just keep in mind that you don't want to put any content outside of that grid. And the reason why, and the reason these frameworks are designed at specific widths, is basically based on what current day browser resolutions are at. So if I were to put the logo outside of here and I just designed with whatever grid I wanted to, if someone opened up my site and their their resolution was less than, this is about 1290 pixels wide. If their resolution was lower than that, then you'd have a bunch of content cut off on the screen. So you want to design within this grid in order to accommodate for every single browser out there. And within that same download, if I open up the 320 pixel, you see this is actually for phones. So this is for like iPhones and things of that nature. So you want to design within this width as well.
And also, it's a term that gets thrown around a lot, and maybe not everybody knows. But let's just real quickly explain what the meaning of having a responsive layout is. Evan,
Yeah,
if you want.
sure. Yep. So I can actually pull up the Twitter grid system here. This site might be responsive. It is. So, for example, if I have this website kind of in front here, and if you can kind of see the Photoshop document in the background, you see how this website has a slightly bigger grid. That's fine, but basically everything still falls into a left and right margin. If you start to scale down, the website essentially changes to accommodate for tablet. So this is your tablet view. This is like your smaller desktop view, and then if I keep going, this is like a large desktop view. So small desktop, tablet, and then right there, this is mobile. So this is like your iPhone, essentially, and everything is going to rearrange and resize so that when someone visits your website on a mobile device, it's still going to look good. And if they visit it on a desktop, it still looks good. So things can reflow. So if you notice the search bar and the free PSD and all that stuff, when I go down to mobile, it gets pushed down to here.
It's one of my favorite features in CSS3. I'm not sure if it was included in other versions of CSS, but I definitely know in CSS3 with the allowing for the resolution commands within CSS to automatically resize like this. It's what gives you the responsiveness. Most people will use CSS to establish this type of responsiveness.
Yeah. You use something called media queries.
Yeah.
And you set up different screen widths, and you can also do resolution, or what's the word? You can do device checks, and you can actually tell if someone's using a specific device, and then essentially serve up a different design
That's
based
in the
on their
HTML,
device.
yeah.
It's all CSS.
Oh, you can do it in CSS.
Yeah. So
I use media queries for CSS, but I know that you. I'm not sure about HTML5, but in previous versions of HTML, you could do device specific style sheet calling. So it will go in, look at what type of device it is, and then you can attach a different style sheet to that. That's kind of the old school way of working around it before media queries were a thing.
Nice. Yeah, there was some really interesting ways of doing that before that are a lot harder too.
The old hack stuff where
Yeah.
You could target different versions of. Is basically to fix older versions of IE and some Safari stuff to where it was you could do some actually pretty ugly stuff to to make it
literally
certain things that other browsers wouldn't. So
it was literally like.
What's that?
Go ahead.
I was just saying it was taking advantage of how those, I guess, what would you call it? Those interface elements, their
UI elements or
everything, how it would read. Taking advantage of their OS in some occasions was just some systems would skip characters and some wouldn't. Some would see them and some wouldn't. So. When you're in code, you could add a character, and one browser would pick up on it, and the other browser would just ignore it. So there was some pretty, they were ugly ways to do it.
Yeah. Back when I first started doing web design, I spent, it was almost like designing two sites because Internet Explorer was literally like every other browser supports this. We're not gonna do it. Yeah. And like it was the worst, man, because You'd get it, you'd pull it up, and you'd adjust a few pixels here to make it look right, and then you pull it up in Internet Explorer, and it was off. And then you just go in Internet Explorer and nudge it a little bit, and then it looks off in the others, and then finally you just end up writing two completely different style sheets, basically, and
Yeah.
it
All
was
one based on the browser.
Well,
huge pain in the butt.
there's a lot of sites that are still like that just because their content is so insane, that it's almost impossible to do like a responsive style with it.
Was that last season that we're talking, Evan, about how that's the reason why you get so many updates for Windows and stuff, because it's just crap code built on top of crap code.
Yeah, there's a great article floating around where somebody wrote about that, where nobody, if you take Windows for example, there's no one left that knows what everything in Windows does, and that can be said with almost every operating system. That so many people have put their type of code in it and their style in it that no one knows what what every single part does anymore. So
That's funny. It's kind of true.
yeah,
And like
it's
the
that.
updates,
Yeah.
like the updates, they just sneak in like these little things where they find a piece of code that is old and that they can omit,
Mhm.
and and then they just pull it out and hope that it doesn't break something.
Yes. Yep.
It's
Anyhow.
crazy. Anyways,
I'm glad you guys are talking because I'm sitting here.
yeah,
Uh,
we're filling the gaps here. This
No.
is Travis's new business. If you want to
yeah,
invest, go ahead.
yeah, it's all about pandas and mountains, and
I
I don't even know.
mean,
I'm making stuff up as I go.
He's, he's actually starting a Yeti hunting group. They go out and they try to discover the first Yeti. So that's what they're doing.
You're
That's what
crazy.
this is. It's going to be on Discovery in the fall.
Yes. You have to subscribe though. Uh, so I just did this very very quickly. It's not great. Just to show you basically, so you follow this grid, as I explained earlier. You want to keep things within the grid, but you can put stuff outside of that grid, knowing that if someone's browser is wider than your content, you want to give them the best experience possible. So for example, when you download this the PSD grid and you open it up, oh, it's the same thing. Let me just save this on desktop. When you open this, don't just close out this and start designing here, because the left and the right hand side of this is what let's see, this is 1300 pixels wide. You got to remember, most laptops are 1366 or 1368 wide. So if you only design this at this width, so for example, if I were to only make this image large enough to fit in here, it's just going to cut off on most browsers, and you don't want that. So typically what I do when I do my sites, like I did in this example, is I will open up this PSD, hit C for the crop tool, and then instead of grabbing the left side like this, if you hold Alt or Option and then click and drag out with the crop tool, you can change the width going out from the center. So I do that, and I make it really really wide, just so that I can accommodate for even a really really large Macs. And then I'll make it a lot taller as well, and then I'll start designing, as you can see here on this test that I'm working on. And then I know if I zoom in, I know that people on laptops, if I bring this down with the crop tool to 1366 or right there, that's basically what people on laptops are going to see. And you can see the content still fits, and that's the reason why you want to make that stuff fall into the grid, because again, if you go outside of the grid, stuff is just going to cut off on laptops and things of that smaller sizes.
It's also important to make sure that you're not only conscious of mobile devices, but you're actually designing the site. Whenever I do a web design, I always do the desktop version and the mobile version as a PSD before I even start in the programming phase, because if you're not paying attention to those things, it's not going to look as good as the desktop version, and you're going to miss out on some functionality, or there's going to be something that's going to go haywire when you go to program it. And worse is if you don't plan all that out and somebody else has to code it, that's going to be just a nightmare for them. So whenever you're working with other people, it's uh, should be one of your priorities is mobile because there's a lot of people that use mobile almost exclusively nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, our site alone, I think we brought up in the last show, it's like 40% of our website traffic is mobile. Um,
That's
and
another good thing to use to start with Bootstrap because Bootstrap was built, the framework was built with mobile first in mind.
Yeah.
So they already have in the
yep, in
style
the
sheet they already
code.
have breakpoints and things you need to make sure that it scales up and down
And
well.
that's something that any web designer will tell you. That's a phrase that a lot of web designers use is mobile first. So, I think 40% is probably right around the average for every website, not just Creative Grenade.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why a lot of people nowadays are asking, and maybe you've even noticed that a lot of websites are starting to look a little similar in terms of layout. So you've definitely seen this before. This is not something new to you,
A
right?
lot of them are using Bootstrap.
Yeah, so you've seen like a hero image, and you've seen like bigger blocks of content, and it feels very kind of mobile-esque, and that's for good reason. When this website scales down to mobile, I can already tell you exactly what's going to happen. Like
Hmm.
this is going to come over here and it's going to get smaller. It's going to be centered. This is going to scale down somewhere around here. This would come down to here and this would wrap down, for example, and then oops, your main nav would turn into and by the way, if you didn't know the name of this, you're going to laugh, but it's called the hamburger icon. If you never knew the official term. So this is called the hamburger icon. You've seen this on mobile sites before because it looks kind of like a hamburger.
You mean the menu?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
menu. Yeah.
the menu icon.
Yeah, the actual name for it is a hamburger icon. So yeah, so this can scale down to mobile without totally breaking the site. Whereas if you have something super complex, such as um, eBay, which actually I think eBay may have redesigned for a reason for mobile. Let's see. Nope. So eBay is not a responsive site. As you can see, as I move my browser width, none of the content's changing. So if you try to go to eBay.com on your mobile device, you'll actually probably see that it might be m.ebay.com. Let's see.
Or it'll say download
Uh,
our app or
It's
something.
yeah, it's still redirecting. So if you actually go to ebay.com on your phone right now and you look at the browser, the actual URL, it's probably not ebay.com. It's probably like mobile.ebay or m.ebay or something of that nature, and it'll actually be a slightly different layout than you see here. And that's what we were talking about earlier. Some of these sites are just too extensive to try to make this all responsive. There's like huge mega menus, like it just would not break down to mobile very well. Whereas if you design a more of a modern site like this, it's a lot easier to break down. And it's really just a case by case basis. I mean, that doesn't mean that eBay has to have a responsive site. There's really nothing wrong with that as long as you're catering to your users and your audience in the right way, you'll be good. So I know that was kind of quick and dirty, but that's generally the entire process. The rest of it is up to how you want to design your site. Following this grid as much as you can in terms of these blocks, for example, you see how these blocks are actually falling within 4 columns, and then this one's 4 columns and this one's 4 columns. That's going to make it a lot easier, as we had mentioned earlier, with responsive. So I know for a fact
Mm.
that on mobile, and you can go to the creativegrenade.com website and compare it to the desktop version and how things break down.
Looks
This is going to stack down below and whatnot. I can pull it up actually really quickly
looks
here.
like eBay uses a PHP script to redirect to a mobile version of the site. It's
Oh, really?
m.ebay.com. Yeah,
What is it?
m.ebay.com.
Oh, see, that's what I went to, but I think what's going on is it's my browser, their website saying, hey, we know you're on a desktop,
Yeah,
redirect back to the
yeah, they're
desktop
using a
version.
PHP script to
Yeah, you can
see what
also
kind of
install
device you're on.
what's called a user agent switcher, and in your browser if you want. Most browsers have plugins nowadays where it's pretty easy to switch between a responsive design and a well, not just that, but to mimic other devices. But if you are doing development, you can look for something called a user agent switcher, and then that'll allow you to have your browser mimic as some other browser. So if it's a mobile browser, or if it's on another OS, or whatever it is, um, you can trigger those mobile sites to come up on your desktop.
Nice. Yeah, it's always interesting to me, like how people approach this kind of stuff. Because
Yeah.
it really just depends. I
Did you?
I always like to go to different sites, especially big name sites, and just see if they do a full responsive or if they do like a redirect style. It's pretty cool to check that out.
Could you imagine if one of like the heads of eBay went to one of their designers and programmers and be like, yeah, we need to redesign the whole site and make it responsive.
Yeah, they'd be like, all right, that's gonna take about a year.
They'd be like, about those raises.
Yeah. And just to finish up here with this tutorial, same thing as hero images and headers and any kind of bars of content. You can have the color and design and anything, any aesthetic style. You can have full width, or even break the grid like this. If you want it to look kind of interesting or whatever you want, that's fine, as long as your actual content, text, images, and anything that needs to be read by the user or understood by the user needs to fall within a grid system, whether it's Bootstrap's grid or this other one that I'm going to show you real quick called Foundation. And you can see the structure. Here's the grid. So you can see it's broken down to div classes of rows and then different grids. So here's an example of the rendered HTML of this grid, and as you can see, as it breaks down, the grid is responsive, and then there's certain breakpoints where the grid actually restructures. So that's what the frameworks are. And in terms of setting up your Photoshop design for a website, you definitely want to download a template of whichever framework you're going to use. So if you're going to be working with a developer, ask them like, hey, what framework are you going to develop the site on? In most cases, they'll say Bootstrap, Foundation. If they say WordPress, I mean, WordPress can technically be based on any framework. You can really do any grid you want. You can even make up your own grids, but it's always a safe bet that it's probably going to be Bootstrap, Foundation, or there's like one or two other really popular ones, but Bootstrap by far is what I would consider the industry standard, which is the one that you're looking here on the screen, and we will put a download link to it in the description. That's it for this.
Sweet, man. So I hope that helps out and clears up some questions that you guys might have. I do get that question a lot, like what is a good starting size for a PSD for a website, and this in this day and age, like Travis was saying, it really doesn't matter if your layout is responsive and it's within that grid. The starting size is not really what matters.
Yeah, it's really about the content within that size. So I mean,
Yeah.
it can be this wide or this wide, or it could be as long as you want. I mean, you've seen those really really long like one-page sites. So
Yeah.
the actual canvas size of your Photoshop document does not matter as long as the grid is in place and you don't go outside of that with your content.
Kind of off topic here, but I've got to find it, and if I do, I'll let you guys know on Twitter. I found the site the other day that it was actually a horizontal scrolling site. It was a one
Oh yeah.
page horizontal scrolling site, and it was just this guy's resume, and like throughout the whole site, his guy is just like walking through different video game levels.
Yeah.
He's just kind of like walking across, so you're horizontally scrolling, so it's like Mario, it's like a horizontal scroller. It was pretty cool. I would never recommend a horizontally scrolling site, but that was a pretty cool idea.
Yeah.
One version of my website in like late '90s was a horizontal scrolling setup. It was fun to build. It was hard at the time because there wasn't really a good way to do it. So it was a learning experience, but I always liked how that one turned out.
Nice.
Pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So
Do you want me to jump into the top 5 real quick?
yeah, if you want to do that.
Okay. Um, so tonight for the top five, and we do this. I do this on each show. I just do either top five design trends or top five portfolios I've come across. So tonight I'm doing the top five things that you may not have known about Illustrator. So
Ah,
yeah. So the
what?
nice. The first one is
It's very nice.
it's probably going to be things that you already know, but some people probably don't. So the first thing, and this is actually a bonus one, so technically there's six. Um,
Snap.
Bam. So the within the rectangle tool, you can drop it down. You can, you have access to the polygon tool, the star tool. So the polygon tool, for example, starts out as this hexagon. Now, if you hold shift, obviously it constrains proportions. But if you, while you're laying down this, you're left clicking and you're holding down, and you're gonna let go to drop the object. As you're holding down that left click, you can actually hit up and down on your arrow key on your keyboard, and you can increase or decrease how many points you want the hexagon to have. So if I go all the way down, you can go down to a triangle, and then if I hit up on my keyboard, the up arrow, I can continue adding points into almost to the point where it becomes pretty much a circle. And you can also do the same for the star tool. So as a standard star starts out, you can hit up and you can start adding more points like this. To add it even further, if you hold Alt or Option and then move your mouse cursor, you can create different size, and you can basically increase or decrease the radius of what you want those points to be, which is pretty cool. But so the actual tip that I was going to go over here is the 3D tool within Illustrator. So if you lay an object down, let's just do something a little simple. Let's just put a polygon like this down, and let's color it. We'll do like a blue. So if you come up to Effect, 3D, and then Extrude and Bevel, you can do this on any path. And what you want to do is you want to check Preview in the bottom left, and you basically have a bunch of 3D options. So as you can see in the preview, it's matching the position and the sort of preview of this cube. So you can actually click and drag this cube and face it, say, this way, and then let go, and you can see that's what's being applied onto the art. So you can also use these. I can set this to 0, 0, 0, and that's going to be back to where we were. And then I could just increase this one, for example, if I just wanted to rotate it forward and backwards on the x-axis. And then same thing for the y. I can do this. And then of course the z-axis. Now you can also come down here to the depth, so you can increase the depth like so. So maybe we want to put it around there. And then the perspective is pretty interesting. If you turn this up, it starts to put more of a 3D perspective into it. Like it makes it look more like it's in a room or in some kind of environment. So if you bring that back to 0, it's very geometric and flat, but you can put a little bit of perspective on it if you want to make it look a little more interesting. And then when you hit OK and you like the way it looks, it's kind of this just like box that I can't really do anything with. I can change the color, but it changes the color of everything. So what you want to do is you actually want to go to Object, Expand Appearance. And once that's done, you just right click on this and you have to ungroup it, because when you expand the appearance, it's going to keep it grouped. You ungroup it, and now you actually, because you have to ungroup twice, now I have different pieces of that 3D object. So now I can start coloring these individually and create some really cool stuff. And most notably, you can do this with text, which is pretty cool. So you can type out some text, create outlines, go to Effect, 3D, Extrude and Bevel, and apply the same process. So I can change this color, and now I can expand appearance, ungroup it, and now I have this 3D object with all these different pieces. So
I could see that being really useful for like Minecraft art,
where
where you just kind of like draw
oh
the
yeah,
face in, and then you do the group thing to sort of delete the stuff that you don't need,
yeah,
or
definitely.
change it for shading and stuff like that. Is that only in CC, or do you know
No,
in earlier
the
versions?
extrude and bevel has been around for quite a while, along with some other 3D options. So if you don't want to actually have that bevel effect, you can just do 3D rotate and hit preview, and that's actually just going to rotate it in 3D space, but not actually apply the beveling and the extrusion. It's
Hmm.
just going to kind of rotate it on a flat kind of style. But yeah, that's been around for a while, but it's pretty useful if your project calls for it. The next one is a really cool transform effect. So if you lay down any path, so we'll just do this pentagon for example. You go to Effect, um, Distort and Transform, and then Transform, and it's going to open up this Transform effect dialog box. I'm going to check Preview, and down here at the very bottom it says Copies 0. So I'm going to bump that up to say 6. And then I'm going to start messing with these sliders. So I'm going to move the horizontal to the right, and you can see I have 6 copies. I can also do the vertical and move it down this way. And then I can even apply scale if I want to. So maybe I want these to start out at 100%, but then when they get down, let's do 60 by 60. So now it's actually starting at 100, and by the time it gets down to the sixth copy, it's 60%. It's 60% scale changes basically all the way down. And then if I start changing this rotate, this is where it gets pretty interesting. You can start rotating these around and create some really cool spiral effects. You can increase the copies at any time as well. So I can keep going all the way down into a vortex of never-ending pentagons. And it's pretty cool. You know,
Hypnotize yourself.
what's that?
You can hypnotize yourself.
Yeah, you can reflect X, reflect Y. You can come back and adjust the actual how far you want the object to move. You can change the scale back up if you want to create some more interesting stuff. And then once you hit OK, what's pretty cool is it's still a live object, so I can actually change the anchor points here, and it will actually change all of them. And then once I'm happy with it, I just take that one object, because you can see I'm just moving this one object, but it's all pieced together. Again, I can go to Object, Expand Appearance, and now they're all different pieces. I can right click and ungroup, and now I have them all as separate elements, and I can apply some like color variation and create some pretty cool stuff. I mean, there's a lot of logos out there that have been created with this effect.
There's a similar um, tool or option in After Effects that you can do this with. So that's also pretty cool to. They have sort of the same functionality.
Yeah, they seem to they've been doing a lot better, especially with CC, kind of um, applying some of the same functionality across the programs, which I'm really happy about. Like if you have a distort and transform in one program, you should offer it like in the rest. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. So that's just the you go to Effect, the distort and transform, and then transform onto a path, and you can apply those kind of things. The third one is the raster styles. So I wouldn't necessarily excuse me. I wouldn't recommend doing this often, because the rasterized styles within Illustrator are kind of they're pixel based, even though they're within a vector program like Illustrator. But if you go to Effect and you come down to these Photoshop effects, you can still apply things like blur to vector objects. So you can still create some pretty cool artwork within Illustrator with some familiar Photoshop effects like blur and glow and things of that nature. You can go to texture grain, and it pops up this crazy window, and you can hit OK. Very, very similar to Photoshop, but you still have the vector abilities like so. So it's pretty cool. It's just kind of interesting to be able to apply noise and things of that nature within Illustrator and not actually avoiding the need to bring it into Photoshop. But I would still recommend doing that like on a separate canvas or a separate file, so that you're not applying raster effects on top of your vector artwork. So it's just nice to know that that's there if you ever need to do that.
It really shows the power of Illustrator too.
Yeah. I mean, a good example, like this one guy wanted the logo to have like glowing eyes. So rather than doing the glow part in Photoshop, I just created another Illustrator file, and if these are the eyes, I can apply like a blur to them and create a sort of glowing effect if I need to within Illustrator, and not have to bring it over to Photoshop. So the fourth one is, this one's really cool. It's somewhat new to me. I've known about it for a while, but I haven't used it as much as I have recently, and I'm really starting to like it. It's called the appearance panel. It's over here on the far right. It's like a circle with, let me just make sure you guys can see it. If you don't have it, just go to Window Appearance and it'll pop up. So the way that it works is it's going to do your strokes, your fills, your patterns, gradients, and things of that nature in more of a layered style. So by default, you only have one fill and one stroke in Illustrator. So if I set the fill to this circle to this green color, and I set the stroke to like a pink, and I bump the stroke way up, and let's put it on the outside. There we go. So that's kind of what I'm limited to, right, within Illustrator by default. One fill, one stroke. If you open up the appearance panel, you can see here I have my stroke. It's a pink stroke, 18 point outside, and I have a fill of green. Well, now what if I want another stroke on top of the other one? I can come to this panel and say add a new stroke. So now I have a second stroke. As you can see, I have my fill, my original stroke, and then another one. I can change this color and change the size, and I can change the stroke just like any other stroke. I can do align to outside, and I can change these on the fly and create some pretty cool stuff. I can add a second fill if I want to, and then maybe I want this fill to have some opacity or a different blending mode like multiply. So this appearance panel is just like layers, but just with different appearances of an object, and they're all still editable in terms of being live information until of course you expand that appearance, and then it's actual path information like so. So it's pretty cool. It's a really easy way to create some like interesting circle styles. If you want like a button that has like a like different shades of gray coming out from the center, this is an easy way of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And last but not least is the almighty width tool. So the width tool is pretty cool. It works with stroke information. So if I lay down a stroke, and it's a little finicky, so you got to be careful with the width tool, but if I lay down a stroke like so, what's that?
You have to massage it. Talk nice to it.
Yeah, you got to be real gentle. So, so for example, let me do this in black. If I lay down this circle, and I have this this black stroke, and let me update to 15. The width tool is hidden under, it's actually not hidden, it's actually the top panel, but I usually have the warp tool open. But it's right over here. It looks like it's right underneath, it's like 2 or 3 underneath your eraser tool. It's called the width tool. It's Shift W to activate it. So when you turn on the width tool, you have this little icon on your mouse cursor, and as you go across any stroke, you have this white little circle. So if I left click and I hold and I drag out, you can see a little preview here. I can actually change the width of the stroke and then let go to create a very clean and symmetrical like change of width within that stroke. And then of course I can come back through and start adjusting it, but the more you play with it, like you can see it starts to get kind of crappy looking. So you really want to use the width tool just for like if it's the top of a head or something and you want more weight on the stroke at the top, just applying the width tool like once like so, or maybe you want a section to have a lot less weight, you can bring it way down like that and create a pretty interesting ring. And what's cool about the stroke tool, or the width tool as well, if you didn't notice, at the very top of my window, let me bring it down here, you notice how here in the stroke panel the variable width profile is set to uniform, but the moment I take the width tool and I actually change something on it like that, it actually adds this profile here, and I can save this profile as top heavy or whatever I want to call it. And now if I put another circle down with a stroke, I can come down to the profiles, and there it is. It's called top heavy. I click on it, and there it goes. It applies that variable width that I saved earlier.
So you could save it. It would be the same as like a preset in Photoshop.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a preset width profile. So as you're doing things with the width tool, so if I keep on adding more variations to it, you can see it's actually updating up here. So and if I want to reuse this exact kind of style, yeah, I can come up here and hit save, and name it whatever I want to, select any stroke within my document or any future documents, and my profile will be there. I can click on it, and it's going to apply it to that shape. So it's pretty cool.
Nice.
It's nice because you can maintain that live stroke information, because now I can increase or decrease the size rather than doing this with shapes that are flat path information that once you kind of dedicate to a certain width or whatever, and you want to increase it, you're gonna have to go back and kind of redraw it. So
Nice.
yep.
So let's have a little fun here, and let's just say you have someone come to you and they've never opened Illustrator before and they want to learn Illustrator. What would you say is the most important tool in Illustrator to master?
To be honest, I wouldn't say it would necessarily be a tool, but more of the understanding of how Illustrator works in terms of path information. So if I had to break it down to certain tools, it would be the pen tool, the shape tools, the text tool, the pathfinder. They all work with path information and vector points. So like, the pen tool, as you're drawing things with these Bezier curves, to understand how it works, just remember that it's going to sound confusing, but it's all mathematical information. The paths are actually mathematically created within Illustrator's code, and the reason for that is you can scale it to any size. So because it's a mathematical equation, it's scalable to however far you want to zoom in or out, whereas Photoshop, it's literally laying down pixels on your screen and you can't keep zooming into that. So once you kind of grasp that it's path information, these tools start to make more sense because they start to look the same. You can see the blue outline as a path information. If I start typing some text out and I scale it way up, you see everything is blue. If I create outlines, I have the same sort of path information with all these anchor points of path information. So once you kind of figure that out, you can start to learn how these tools really work in conjunction with each other. So pen tool, shapes, pathfinder, which is if you want to combine shapes. So if you have two circles like this, you can select both of them and take the pathfinder and unite them into one shape. You can do things like subtract, where you actually cut away from each other, so you can use one shape as like a cookie cutter to delete from another shape. And again, it's all path information in here. So if I turn off the fill, I have that blue line there, which is my path information. So all editable via mathematical equation. It's pretty interesting, but yeah, I think once you learn that, you can kind of master the program.
Guys, remember when you're moaning and groaning in school and you're like, when are we ever going to use geometry in the real world? Travis just dropped a grenade on your argument.
You don't need to know algebra. I can tell you that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Algebra's still crap.
Yeah, but even here in the top, like the position on the X and Y axis, as I move this, if you look at the very top up here, as I move this in my canvas, I mean, all that information is being stored by Illustrator. And if I move a point, see how that information at the top is moving? And you can even see it in that gray box next to my cursor. That's really all Illustrator's doing. And it's just up to you to be creative with it. So
What do you think, Evan?
I think Illustrator is a love-hate relationship. But yeah, it is it's a different. The way it works is very different than Photoshop, and simply because it's vector based as opposed to pixel based or raster based. So there is going to be, if you trying to get into Illustrator, there is going to be a little bit of a learning curve. It's not exactly the same, even though it is like another Adobe product. But just keep in mind that it works differently. It's a whole different type of software. So, but once you get used to it, it's extremely powerful.
yeah.
And it's a good thing to know. So if you're trying to get into this field, all of these programs go hand in hand. An example I just ran into was for the website I work for my full-time job. I had a whole bunch of icons I needed to do, and it was a combination of using, starting out in Photoshop to get my pixel dimension size, and go into Illustrator and building the icons, and then even going into a font program and turning them into a workable font that the developers could use. So, there's a lot of flipping between these types of software to get almost any project done anymore. So it's good to know.
Yep.
It's fun. It's funny how far Photoshop has come from its original purpose to what I'd say a vast majority of people use it for now. Like the name is pretty intentional that it's
Yeah.
supposed to be used for photo editing,
And not
and
websites.
yeah, and just a lot of people just don't
Don't
use
even
it for
use it for
that,
that. Yeah.
or know that that was the original intention for the program, and that's why Illustrator is it's so important, such an important program to learn and what we do, because it's literally made for what we all do, as graphic designers and illustrators, and things like that. Like that's what that program was actually made for, that purpose, whereas Photoshop, not so much.
Right. Yep. And that's why I've been getting into a program called Sketch. Unfortunately, it's only available on Mac.
Oh,
Uh,
boo.
yeah, I have a PC at home, but I've been using it, and it's really nice. It's like made to build websites.
Welcome to Command Z.
Yep.
Command Z.
All right.
Travis
So
is making some kind of terrifying
yeah, I don't know what that was.
beast on stream. I'm not sure. Let's take a look at the mascot logos real
All
quick.
right. So last portion of the show tonight, mascot logos.
Our favorite part, by the way.
Yes. I'm always excited to look at these. These are so good, man.
Again,
This
we
looks great.
appreciate week in and week out you guys submitting your entries for these. And we're planning on doing more prizes in the future. We just got to sort of figure out what those are going to be and how often we're going to offer them. But we seriously appreciate these submissions, and we all absolutely love looking through them. So keep sending them in, please.
Definitely. Yeah, this first one by Clear Design, this night that he did. This looks really good, man. Right off the bat, my favorite part about mascot logo designs is the really good use of negative space, and letting the light source kind of like shine on the elements that form the object that are needed. So only trying to utilize, only using as much elements that you really need to form the object, and you definitely did a really good job doing that here.
Yeah, whenever I saw this is the first submission that we got for this week, and I was like, man, setting the bar high for the rest of the people
Yeah.
submitting their work. It turned out really nice, and at first I kind of questioned his stroke width around
The
the red stroke width, but I'm assuming from my total lack of knowledge of mascot logos, he did that to maintain the spacing for the axes.
Yeah, that may have been why.
If he'd have
Yeah.
gone much thicker, it probably would have had a lot of intersecting and would have kind of just run together.
Yeah, it really just depends on the style you like. Like I personally would have made the stroke probably 3 or 4 times bigger, but that's just my personal preference for the stroke in the background. But this is more of like I think it's called like a key line around the to form the object. So because without it, you'll kind of lose some of the shape here, the form.
It'd be
But,
harder to make out the
right.
negative space.
Yeah. But excellent work on the shading and everything. The text, the appreciation on the text and all that stuff is really good. Is really nice.
Good job.
Yeah, I see a lot of people, they'll make like a banging illustration, and then that text is, you're just like, oh.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. Good
That
job,
hurts.
Clear.
Good job, Clear. Excellent
This
work.
one, it looks like it's Charlie A.
Yes.
Nice.
Whenever I typed that in, whenever I saved that file name, I was like, hey, it's probably going to mess him up.
Yeah.
'Cause it
Charlie
was all
A
together.
underscore.
Right.
Yeah, I mean this. I want to say you probably watched that Fraser Davidson Skillshare tutorial because this definitely has that feel to it. But and not I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm saying it in a positive way because it looks really good. Um,
And because it's an amazing tutorial, though.
it's really good if you haven't checked it out. Um, yeah, it's pretty interesting. I'm trying to figure out if I like the asymmetrical style of it
Hmm.
or not. But either way, it's kind of interesting. It kind of gives it a little more emotion, like maybe like kind of like the wind is blowing the mane, to one side.
Yeah. Whenever I first looked at it, I thought it was a baboon for a second. Then because the face was a different color, and I was like, oh, actually, this is a lion.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. I can see how that might look like that. But
It's a good job.
yeah.
Again, my total lack of knowledge in this field makes my critique somewhat less.
Well, I can point out just a few things. Um, the spacing between your elements, you want to try to keep that as even as you can. So just a few areas like this one here, where the top of the forehead meets the top of the mane, it gets a little close to the gray. So areas like that, you want to try to maintain the distance, and you did a really good job for most of this. Maintaining the width here between the eyes and the negative space. So you just want to try to keep that same width throughout the whole piece. So this is the only spot that kind of keeps sticking out for me. But really great job. I really like the presentation of this too.
You guys are all about the banter tonight in chat, by the way.
All right, so great job, Charlie A.
Simmer down now, y'all. Simmer down.
Next up, this is from Raised Ink, and this is like crazy detailed and awesome. And it's I don't know why, but I'm seeing like an afro. It's like a lion with an afro. Is that what I'm supposed to see, or is it more of like just a dark kind of shadow around it?
Yeah, he's definitely from the '70s.
Yeah. I
It's cool
absolutely
though.
love this green, just this really subtle green thrown in there. Everything's black and white, and then you've got just like these little hints of this one color green, and that the way you did it, like my attention just keeps going straight to the eyes.
Hashtag Tiger Fro. They said.
Tiger fro, tiger fro.
Tiger Fro.
This is
Sounds like
some
a
really, really good shading technique. I really appreciate this. I like the even the little shading on the tongue, the little scratch marks. This is really great.
I always appreciate this type of shading that it's kind of like made up of a bunch of lines, like it's kind of like pencil strokes, right? So I like that. I like that kind of shading.
Yeah.
Uh,
What's the term for that? Do you know, Evan? It's not cross hatching because cross hatching you got to like put lines
um,
on top of lines, with
oh, they
X's.
call it yeah, cross hatching
Is it?
is when
It
it's crossed.
yeah. It's
It's
not.
called
Is it called?
scalloping.
What is it?
Scallops.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool. And then you can adjust the variance of them, whether they're wider or closer together to create, different depths. So like for example, the tongue here, he got a lot closer with all the lines to create more of that shadow and stuff.
yeah,
This is really excellent illustration work.
great job.
Yeah, great
Be a
job.
cool T-shirt.
Definitely.
Yeah, if you want to see an artist that does the whole scallop thing really well, there's I think he's in LA. It's called OG Abel. It's OG and then second word ABEL. He does some outstanding work.
Does
So
Jared
look
use?
him up.
Is that the technique that Jared uses
Yeah,
as well?
Jared's is also a scallop approach. It's where it's a form of shading where it stays as a full shape, so it doesn't break apart like a halftone,
Yeah.
uh, and it doesn't ever cross itself like a crosshatch. Another form of shading is stippling or
Yeah, dots.
yeah, the dots as they get it, which is more of a random version of halftone type
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome job, Raze.
Job race.
All right, so next up, Pixel Rat. This is really cool.
I
This is
like,
very loud.
Man, so it's like a pig with some paintbrushes.
yeah.
This is really interesting, man. Like, I don't know what it is about this. It's really, it's just attractive to me.
Being from Arkansas, I saw a Razorback
Oh
immediately in
yeah.
there. So
You're just like, yep, good to go.
He's
I'm
got
like,
an interesting style where all of his lines are very, they're very organic. There's a lot of like
yeah.
Yeah,
they have a tendency to like swirl into each other. A
liquid
lot of his
form
work
almost.
has that feel to it, which is pretty cool.
You can
Yeah,
tell he probably uses a tablet, I'd say.
I think so. I think so. I think he also just does a lot of hand drawing than scanning. Um, he
I
don't know
think
if
I can
he's
see that in here. Actually, a little bit of hand-drawn strokes or swoops in here. It's
yeah.
it's pretty cool because it looks like and just like with raisings too. I need to learn how to do that more often, but it looks like a lot of the base elements are done, just half of it, and then you flip it over. And I think I've seen you do stuff where you can set
I
it
do it
up.
all the
Yeah, yeah,
time.
where you can set up like a center point, and you can just start from the center and start drawing out, and it will just mirror it while you're drawing, so you can kind of see what it looks like and set different widths.
That's a
So
plug-in, isn't it?
Manga does it. Manga has one of their updates does it, but that's a raster program. So as you draw, it can mirror it where however you put the guide basically. So it
right,
can
right.
vertically or on an angle or horizontally. Um, uh, what is it? Autodesk Sketchpad? Is that it?
I
I
think
think they
so.
have one. They have a mirror tool.
Nice. Yeah, very cool. I need to look in to see if there's an illustrator. I'm sure there is. There's got to be one out there, or even a
Oh,
setting maybe, where as you're drawing stuff, it just mirrors it on the guide that you set up.
yeah.
I think there is a plugin for it. There's a company that does like a lot of halftone type plugins and stuff, and I think I remember seeing them have something similar.
Nice.
Well, anyways, great job, Pixel Rat.
Yep.
Yes, awesome
job,
work. I
dude.
love this. And last but not least, Mason Designs with
So is
this.
that it?
Yeah, I think so. Right?
Is
Hold
that the
on.
samurai?
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
almost like
Yeah.
a.
Did you get the one for Galactic Raptor?
Where'd you send that to?
It was in that zip file.
Mm,
It was the Ctrl+Z one.
I can double check. I just unzipped it and downloaded it all. Is that the one
Anyways.
that Evan did?
No, it was from Galactic Raptor.
All right, I'll double check in a second here.
Okay.
All right, so this one is from Mason, and it's
Oh,
a
nice.
robotic-looking samurai, and very very well done.
I call him Samurai Jason.
Oh yeah, nice. This is
Really cool.
excellent. Yeah. See, this is I really like this too. The little shading here. This is an effect that I've been trying to do a lot more often now. Where you actually pull in, like this yellow is actually being pulled in as a highlight here and a highlight here on these, and I really like that style. This is really good work. I mean, honestly, there's not too much negative stuff I can say about this one. You're paying attention to the spacing on everything. Everything seems really well, spaced out the right way, and yeah, just really good job and really good presentation. It's
I
fantastic,
like
man.
the cool background as opposed to the warm logo, and using that color within like the dark areas to give it that hot and cold color combination.
Yeah.
Hey, Travis, can you pull up your Twitter and grab and take a look at Oliver's?
Sure.
He just tweeted it at us.
Yeah, do you just want me to pull it
Apparently,
up on,
I didn't add it into the.
Yeah, let me. Did he tweet it at me
Yeah,
just now?
yeah.
Okay, let me pull it up. Here we go. All right, so this one's from Ollie JT. It's a. This is cool. African lion mascot.
Oh yeah. I looked at this one the other. It was on Dribble. That's why I didn't grab it.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, yeah. This
Oh,
is
that's
really,
cool.
yeah, this
I
is
like the
really.
patterns.
That's exactly what I was about to say. I really, really like the use of the patterns here in the background, and they're not like overpowering, you know. They're
Yeah.
just in there subtle enough. This is really cool. I honestly, this is something. And just to be upfront with you, Ollie, like I wouldn't necessarily consider this a mascot per se, or at least not necessarily like a sport style mascot, but legitimately, like the artwork itself is really well done. Like I would see this, like hanging up in some like restaurant or something with all this like, African food or whatever, it's really well done. What are you laughing at?
Making me hungry.
Yeah. I ate too much ham during Easter.
Oh my
I've been
gosh.
eating ham for the last like 3 days. Ham sandwiches, ham on Easter. But
Yeah, it's cool. I like the color variation, and I also like the little subtle pattern um, differences in here, like the little undertones of the patterns. Looks good, but yeah, nice job.
Ah, man.
great work, everybody.
I tweeted the other one to you as well, Travis,
All
from
right,
Galactic Raptor.
let's take a look. Up arrow, up arrow. Except you didn't link it. There is nothing in the up arrow.
My God, why?
Maybe I can.
What? When I did a reply to it, it didn't. It doesn't go up.
You broke it.
You broke it.
Why?
Shout out to Mason Designs for being in the top 5 mascot logos. Oh, is it on your Twitter?
Can you just go? Can you look at? Just go to Galactic_Raptor.
On Twitter?
We're getting you in here, Galactic Raptor.
Galactic
I hope you're
underscore
watching.
Raptor.
After this last one, we should probably cut it. We're
All right.
inching up
Yes.
on
Full
time.
screen.
Yep. Control+Z cast mascot. Okay, I remember seeing this one, but it wasn't in the zip file.
Ah,
Yeah.
it's a
Nick.
fail. I blame
This one is really cool.
Hashtag blame Josh.
Yeah. So I'm not even here. This is a really cool concept. I like that keyboard in there, that keyboard key and the mouse.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah, I like the integration of the keyboard key because that was something that I had thought about whenever we were making the original logo.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Evan did a bang up job on the current logo. Fantastic work. But
that mean bad? Like it's wrecked.
Listen, I don't know. I just say things. All right. Don't. You know what? Cut the show. Cut the show. No, but good job, Galactic Raptor. I did enjoy this as one of the earlier submissions, and it's well done. I like the little the thought bubble. It's like cast.
Oh, I thought it was a mouse.
Is it a mouse?
I don't know. I don't care either way. It looks cool.
Either way, good job.
And I like the little cutouts on the Z that kind of match what we have. That sort of.
Wait, did we show Evans, or did we ever get Evans to
I
you?
couldn't open it.
Oh
Man.
my God, the fails.
Oh well, the dragons.
Look
Let me
look
try.
on look on our Twitter at Ctrl+Zcast later, and
Yeah, I can't
I'll have
open
it
it.
up there for you guys.
Here, I can pull it in like this. It's just a little blurry. There you go.
Exclusive.
There, it's up.
Blurry.
It's just a
Is
little
it?
blurry. Yeah, because I
What
had
you
to pull
do?
it
Screen cap it.
in. Yeah. Man, this is so funny. I need to see this full res. Dude, the name. I just noticed the name. Dragons.
Dragon.
It's like the slow dragons, man.
You guys see the dragon?
Raising said it looks like my cat.
Yeah. Send us a picture of your cat.
Yeah, we do a side-by-side comparison.
We'll do a side by side.
Dragons.
Really appreciate the submissions this week, guys, and definitely make sure that you follow us on Twitter at Ctrl+Zcast. We post all of our technical issues and random things throughout the week, and So definitely a good time over there on Twitter at Ctrl+Zcast. Of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, you should check out the live shows, which are going to be Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Central Time starting next week
Yep.
over on twitch.tv/Ctrl+Zcast. And if you're watching the live show now, check out the YouTube VODs and spread the words about that at youtube.com/Ctrl+Zcast. That branding, though. We appreciate you guys coming out, and we'll see you next week at our new time, Sunday, 8 p.m. Central Time, subject to Evan's internet.
And hobos with shovels.
If I see everyone with a shovel, I'll go down.
Thanks,
All right,
everyone.
guys.
Have a
Talk
great
to you.
night.
Later.